Well, welcome to the Echo Lens, the podcast where we view assistive technology through the eyes of lived experience. I'm your host, Kanisha, and each episode we explore how dignity, design, and innovation really intersect to empower the blind and low vision communities. We're not just reviewing tech, we're reframing it. So, this is a space for truth telling, for honoring the voices that often go unheard, and for challenging the industry to do better. Whether you're a developer, a user, or someone who simply believes in equity, you're in the right place. This is the Echo Lens. Let's take a closer look. Hey everyone, welcome back. So, this episode we have Ather Jamoa, and Ather is an assistive technology trainer for the state of Michigan. He is a independent contractor and he is doing work for several organizations in the state who assist blind people, including the Michigan Department of Education Resources for Blind and Low Vision program and the Michigan Bureau of Services for Blind Persons, which I have talked about before. So he's able to offer both beginner and advanced instruction for using many different pieces of hardware and software. Ather's dedication to advocating for young students, particularly in the fields of science, technology, engineering, and math, has really driven him to empower students to advocate for themselves and pursue their dreams. This passion has led to his involvement as an IEP advocate for the National Federation of the Blind, where he participated in the inaugural IEP advocacy cohort in 2024. So when Ather is not working, he's enjoying reading, playing piano, and going to the movies, amongst other things. And he enjoys relaxation as much as he can get it. So thank you so much, Ather, for joining us today. We are so excited to have you.
Thank you for having me.
I met Ather through his work at the Michigan Bureau of Services for Blind Persons. I had applied for some services and we were actually matched up as Ather being my assistive technology trainer. And from the first time I talked to you and the first time I met you, I was like, you're amazing. Everyone needs to hear your story. And also, like, you're teaching me to do a bunch of things, which is very, very awesome. So I would love to hear, Ather, tell us a little bit about your connection to the low vision and blind community and a little bit more about your work.
Sure, thank you. I started back in 2016. I started working for a organization called the Chaldean Community Foundation in Sterling Heights, Michigan.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the things that I did for them, they put out a call and they were like, "Hey, we're looking for braille instructors and tech instructors." And my sister-in-law actually sent that information to me and was like, "Hey, you might be a good fit for this." So I was like, "Oh, okay, sure. Let's apply and see what happens." And so I started working with refugees, people who had just come to the United States. They did not know any English, or their knowledge of English was extremely limited. But luckily, I am trilingual, fluent in Arabic, Chaldean, and English.
Well, that's
And
amazing.
so, well, thank you. And so I was able to work with all of these people. I started out with Braille and then gradually transitioned to technology. While I was there, I was, basically asked, "Hey, have you ever thought of, working as a technology instructor full time for the state?" And at the time, I was like, "No, I really haven't." Um, then I kind of started to think about it and decided, you know what? There are a lot of blind people out there who need technology instruction, and a lot of blind people who, a lot oftentimes get shortchanged with their technology instruction. And so I decided I said, maybe this is not a bad idea at all. So I started on the path to working for the Bureau, which requires a lot of volunteer hours, among other
Mm-hmm.
things. And so I eventually interviewed and was accepted as a teacher for the Bureau. And at the same time, I was interviewed by what was back then known as the Department of Education Low Incidence Outreach Program, now transitioned to Department of Education Blind and Low Vision Resources. And they really liked my work. And so I was hired to contract with both organizations. And I have been doing that since the summer of 2017 and haven't really looked back since. It has been a very, very rewarding experience, especially working with blind people and showing them, hey, we can do a lot of the same things that sighted people can do. And in some ways, we can do those things better.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that journey. I love that you're able to navigate and move through all of these different aspects of technology that we'll get in and talk about a little bit more. Can you tell the listeners a little bit about your vision story?
So I was born with a condition called retinitis pigmentosa. When my mom was pregnant with me, she actually contracted German measles. So,
Interesting.
yeah, I was
Oh
born
my
with a
goodness.
condition called rubella. And that condition basically caused me to be blind. My retinas basically had issues from the very beginning. And so I used to have more vision than I have now, but lost a lot of it in my, I would say, mid 20s to around like my mid 30s. Just kind of
Mhm.
vision started going way downhill. But I had pretty much always been using screen readers before that. I used to use my vision more and more for navigation, but eventually transitioned, completely to my white cane, which I have always used a cane, but, before I used to rely on the cane and the vision. And then when my vision started to deteriorate, I started depending more and more on the cane as a mobility aid and haven't really looked back since.
Yeah, that's it's I have to say, the first time I met you and you come in and I was like learning about your story a little bit and then you're telling me all the things you can do and it was so uplifting. And I'm sure you hear this from other people too that like I was like, well, if they're so amazing at this, why am I having such a hard time? I can learn to do this too, right? With
Absolutely.
learning losing my vision and being able to learn about these new helper type of software and different ways to use all of the tech that I'm already using. So I definitely am thankful that I met you and I appreciate all of the work that you do.
Well, thank you very much. She's a pretty good student, folks. So, you know what?
I'm
It's all
trying.
good.
Yeah. So, can you tell us a little bit about some of the adaptive technology that you really rely on every day?
Of course. So I use JAWS on a computer. And, sometimes I use NVDA as well. I also use a braille display. I have my Brilliant 20 in front of me right now. That's usually the display that I use for jotting down notes. And sometimes I connect it to the computer. And I pretty much always have it connected to my phone so that I can, read things in braille. And I do this for several reasons. One, it helps me to retain better when I read in Braille. And two, I feel like it makes me a better reader, a better speller, and I'm also able to double check my mistakes and make sure that I'm doing things correctly. With a screen reader, you can't always do that. Sometimes screen readers will pronounce a word right, even if you spell it wrong. And sometimes the correct pronunciation does not mean the correct spelling, especially in the
Mhm.
English language. So I do use those. I do use an iPhone with voiceover. And I also do use some of the more old school forms of tech. Still use a slate and stylus to this day. A lot of people are probably shaking their heads at me right now for that because they'll be like, well, why do you still use a slate and stylus? There are so many better things out there. But the thing is, to me, a slate and stylus is a lot like paper and pencil to a to a sighted person. So I think that they are just as important now as they were when I was growing up to jot down fast notes, to make braille labels, things like that. I also still, of course, use a Perkins Brailler. I have one sitting on my desk to my right. And I also, of course, use my cane. I am in the 21st century, everyone, I promise you. I do use a lot of modern apps for navigation, including Good Maps, Google Maps, Blind Square, and a couple of others. And I do use other assistive technology devices. I use Ray-Bans for not necessarily for navigation, but for identifying things.
Yeah. That's a lot of that technology portion is so interesting how long it takes to learn some of it. I'm coming across that it definitely takes some time to get the hang of things. How long or when did you start reading Braille and how long did it take you to learn? I feel like as an older adult trying to learn, it's so confusing.
Braille is definitely one of those things that it is easier to learn when you're younger.
Yeah.
It's not impossible by any means to learn Braille as an adult. It just takes a bit more work and dedication. But I started learning Braille when I was about 5. So I was born in Iraq and I first started learning Arabic Braille. And then,
Okay.
yeah. And
Mhm.
then when
Makes
I
sense.
came to the United States and started 3rd grade here when I was 8 years old, I eventually transitioned to learning English Braille. So even English Braille, I learned when I was fairly young. I learned most of grade 1 by the time I was 9 years old, and then learned grade 2 Braille and pretty much had it mastered by the age of 10. I'll never forget the first time I had a Perkins Braille writer set down in front of me. I had no idea what it was because when I grew up in Iraq, all we had were slates and styluses.
Yes.
And so I remember my teacher putting down a Perkins Brailler in front of me, and I was this like, little precocious kid who, barely knew any English, and I just started pushing random buttons. And the teacher then just like took it away, like, no, you don't know how to use
Well,
this
you
thing
were just
here.
exploring.
I was just exploring. One of the quirks about me, especially with technology, is I love pushing buttons because I want to see what something does. So don't ever put something down in front of me with a big red button that might blow up the world because I might actually push the big red button just to see what happens.
Oh my goodness.
But yeah, I love exploring new technology when I get it. I've always been one of those people. Like you put something down in front of me, I want to learn how it works.
Yeah.
So I'll start exploring it before I even read a manual. And then I'll be like, "Oh, okay, maybe I should pick this up and read about it and see what it does. And then I will start to learn it bit by bit, but not until
Yeah. So what is one assistive tool that you like absolutely love that or assistive technology tool that you absolutely love?
I'm going to steer away from the obvious ones because a lot of people will probably say, like, my phone or
Mhm.
my computer.
Mhm.
And don't get me wrong, those are great pieces of assistive technology. And they're pieces of assistive technology that, like, if I lost them today, I would have to definitely make some changes in my life.
Yeah.
But to be honest with you, my favorite piece of technology, if we're going, tech only here, I would probably have to say is my Braille display because
Okay.
I need Braille in my life. I have to
Yeah.
read Braille. I'm a very strong advocate for reading Braille. A lot of people will say Braille is outdated. And every time I hear that, to be honest with you, it breaks my heart a little more because of how untrue and incorrect that statement is.
Yeah, well, they're definitely not like educated in that sense or pulling in how important it is for the differently abled community to rely on, things such as Braille to be able to get through their day. I have to feel what I'm reading, what am I pushing in the elevator? What am I doing when I go to the bathroom? Like all of those things are
Yep.
really, really important.
Room
And
signs, especially in
yes,
hotels and things like that. You need to at least know your Braille numbers. You need to know at least basic grade 1 Braille because otherwise, what are you going to do? You're going to go around and ask Ira for help or ask,
yeah, be my
the nearest sighted assistant or the nearest Be My Eyes. But like, where's your independence at that point?
Yeah. No, I completely agree with that. It's definitely worth like I'm on the train of learning my basics. I was like I definitely want to know numbers and letters and like basic signs for the bathroom or when you're going to a hotel like you said. That's and traveling cuz you do a lot of traveling too, right? So
I do.
yeah,
Yes.
traveling through the airport and just navigating new spaces.
Yeah. I mean, just this year, I traveled to Baltimore, New Orleans, Chicago, and a whole host of other places. And that's just for work,
Yeah.
and at the beginning of the year, I'll be traveling again to Baltimore, to Atlanta, and a whole bunch of other places. And you can't really make do a lot of times without having, Braille, especially when you're going in a hotel or going in an elevator and trying to find the correct floor and things like that.
Yeah. What is one assistive technology piece that you wish was better? Like, you think it would be really cool, but it just doesn't work like it should work.
So it's not necessarily a technology piece that I'm thinking of. It's more along the lines of a concept.
Okay.
For me, it would probably be something along the lines of website accessibility and app accessibility. There are a lot of apps out there, very useful apps, in fact. And then there's a lot of recreational apps out there that are also fun to play around with, games and things like that. I wish a lot of those were more accessible, more
Mhm.
inclusive. A lot of websites, even to this day, I know a law was passed a year or two ago that, basically says make your website accessible or else, but not a lot of people have followed that. And,
Yeah.
there doesn't seem to be an end in sight when it comes to those apps and websites. They're still inaccessible. They're still barely usable, if even they're usable at all. I want to see increased website accessibility. I want to see increased app accessibility. I want to see those kinds of things. If you
Yeah.
wanted to ask me about computers, though, I want to see something as simple as the BIOS be accessible and able to talk to you. Because right now, if I had to go into the BIOS of a student, I would have to use something like Ira, something like Be My Eyes, and trust them. And here I have to use the word trust with air quotes. I would have to trust them to make sure that they know, hey, I need you to find this for me and tell me where it is so that I can click it. Because with the BIOS of a computer, one small mistake and you could effectively destroy the entire machine.
Oh my.
And yeah, so it's a very, very, very fine line. So in those situations, I have to trust that the IRA agent or the Be My Eyes volunteer is going to take me or, guide me to the right option where I'm going to, press enter so that I can do what I need to do. I can find the steps, but executing them is the hard part.
Mhm. Have you used the app PickyBot? So we
I
had the
have.
owner yeah, so we had a couple episodes ago, um, I mean, by the time this is posted, it'll be it will have been posted, but the owner and creator of PickyBot on, and we got to talk about that, and he was talking about how he is even creating another application that is going to go further than that and do more audio descriptions and things for videos and things like that. So it's really cool, but that's one app that I'm thinking of when you say, are we diving into folks that are trying to make a big change to some of these apps and some of these technologies to make it more inclusive, like you said?
Sure. And first of all, I have to give real props to the person who designed PickyBot. It is honestly my favorite app when it comes to, looking at a video and just getting the app to audio describe it. It is a game changer. It's an app that will always have a soft spot in my heart, even though AI language models like GPT and Gemini do now have a lot of their own screen sharing capabilities. PickyBot is one of those apps where I can just, pretty much attach a video to it and say go and get a pretty accurate description of the things that are going on in that video. I remember the first video I ever described in that app. So, a couple of years ago at the NFE of Michigan State Convention, we had a dunk tank fundraiser. And I actually took a video of the moment where the people in question were dunked into the dunk tank. And I always wanted to know, things like facial expressions and what these people were doing when they were, about to get dunked and the moment that they actually got dunked. Because yes, you hear the sounds and those can leave you imagining things in your head, but to get a audio described rendition of it and a very accurate one at that, because I did ask sighted people about it too and they said that it was correct, was amazing and very empowering, and it really gave me a sense of my own independence for something like this. So again, real props to that person, and I want to say that there's at least one person out there who really appreciates your work.
Well, I'm sure Martine will definitely be listening to this and will give his kudos and his shout out to to Pickybot because I just downloaded and been using it for little things, but I definitely want to dig deeper into that. So, how has your vision journey really influenced the way that you engage or design with innovation?
So, in a lot of cases, when I do work with other people, I teach them based on my own life experience. So, when I teach somebody how to use JAWS to browse a web page, for example, first I will teach them the different steps and things like that in case they want to kind of establish their own rhythm. But then, and oftentimes they do ask me, like, how do you do it? I show them some of my own tips and tricks, and some of the things that I do. So teaching people based on life experience, which is the way that I usually tend to do it, is a real game changer because when they realize he's doing it this way and oh my gosh, this actually really works and gets what I want done way faster. It's something for them that they've never thought of, that they've never experienced. And when they try it for themselves, it's something that really gets to them. I have seen so many people, especially people who become blind later in life and think that there's no hope. Um, they
Yep.
when they're
Yeah.
taught, they often become very, very emotional. And sometimes, like, I just have to, kind of pause the lesson and wait and let them work through that. And that's very important. Letting people work through their emotional turmoils and things like that because they're experiencing new things is extremely important because it's part of the healing process when you go blind in life for whatever reason. It really is. Those emotions cannot be bottled up. And so, oftentimes, like I said, I'll teach it as it should be taught. And then I will teach them, the way that I do things because the nice thing about, having a blind teacher is I've been there and I'm still there with you. I'm still learning this
Yes.
stuff. I'm still teaching this stuff and I'm still using this stuff at least as much as you are on a day to day basis. And to get that input is invaluable from my
That is
experience.
so spot on. So spot on. I think that learning from folks with lived experience has been a game changer for me, I will say, because in building the relationships with folks that are going through similar experiences, because, the matter of the fact is that your sighted friends or your sighted world just doesn't understand to a
No.
certain extent.
Yeah, they really don't. And sometimes even when I'm just doing something as simple as walking, like, my cane is about to, like tell me or notify me of an obstacle in front of me, right? And to the sighted people who might be walking with me, they think that I'm not going to notice that there's an obstacle there. And they'll be like,
Yes.
oh my gosh, you poor helpless blind man, you're about to hit this obstacle. No, I'm not. And oftentimes I have to like pause and be like, all right, let's just look at this for a second. And I show them, like, here, this is how I would have found this obstacle. And for some of my closer friends, they get it and they're like, oh, well, that's actually kind of cool. But when it's just a random stranger that is walking down the road with you and they just see a blind person walking down the street with a cane, they think that the most horrible thing is about to happen in front of their eyes and that they're not going to be able to do anything to stop it. Like, calm down, guys. First of all, it's just a pole. Even if I hit it, it's my fault because I was not using my cane properly. But if my cane hits it, it's not the end of the world because my cane is telling me, hey, there's a pole in front of you. You might want to veer to the right or to the left
Yeah.
so that you can dodge it, essentially.
Yeah, it's a tool to help us and guide us, hence,
Yes.
what it wasn't intended for. So, it's going to hit things. That's
As
the
it's
point,
supposed to.
right?
If it doesn't, it's not
Yeah,
doing its job.
exactly. So, as we start to wrap up here, what is your hope for the next generation of assistive technology?
Technology is growing in leaps and bounds. Every day, week, month, year, decade, it's growing in leaps and bounds. Easier methods for transportation. Right now, we have things like Uber and Lyft, things that we didn't even have
Yeah.
10, 12 years ago. Most cities, most states did not have Uber and Lyft in 2014, 2015. And now that we do, it increases our independence drastically. But I wanted to go further. My dream is the perfection of autonomous driving vehicles. I want to see a blind person just be able to call a vehicle whenever they want and go to their friend's house, go out to a restaurant, go and visit their family, even if they're, 30, 45 minutes away, an hour away, however far they are. I want to see more flexible transportation options. I want to see better transportation options.
Yes.
I want to see something meaningful happen in the world of transportation. I'm a very strong advocate for transportation. I've been trying to get the rideshare program kind of built into smart services for Oakland and Macomb and Wayne and possibly even Washington County's, paratransit services. I want to see more flexibility. Right now, if somebody's using paratransit in Michigan, sometimes they have to book their trips up to 2 days in advance. I
Yep.
don't know where I'm going to be in 2 days. I can't tell you I have to go visit a student in 2 days because those plans could change, either because the student changes those plans or because I have to change those plans or because the weather has to change those plans. I want to see more immediate, better, instantaneous transportation options for the blind, even if it was just an hour's difference to start. I'd like that to be down to about 5 minutes, if at all possible, but I'll take an hour. And right now, that's something that is not possible when it comes to the blind booking services using something like paratransit. It's possible for blind people who use Uber or Lyft, but to be honest
But
with
so
you,
expensive.
it's expensive. And most blind
Mm-hmm.
people, if they don't have jobs, they don't have the budget for Uber. They
Yeah.
don't have the budget for Lyft.
Yeah. I was gonna take my kids to the movies over the weekend, and I don't live far from the movies, maybe like, I don't know, 2 miles. And it
Yeah.
was $30 one way. I was like, well, we're not going to the movies because I
That's
refuse to pay
awful.
that much
And
for
that's the thing, a
going
2-mile
for
trip?
a
Come
matinee that costs
on.
$5. I don't know if
Yeah.
it was because of, it was starting to get dark or, all those different factors that go into it, but ridiculous. And I know that on Lyft, you can mark that you're blind. On Uber,
But it doesn't
isn't it?
change
Or other
anything.
ways around, but it doesn't change anything.
It
That's,
doesn't
yeah,
change
you're
the
right.
price tag. I mean,
Yeah,
sure, the driver is gonna know that you're blind, and that's all well and great and good, but it's not going to change the price tag.
yeah, yeah. I just got approved for like the local riding, like you were talking about. And that's exactly the first thing I was looking at when I was looking at the book. I was like, it says that you could request a same day ride, but you could be waiting, like you said, an hour or two, or you have to schedule it at least 24 hours in advance. And
And
I'm like,
most of
well,
the
I don't,
time, even if you try to get a same-day ride within an
yeah,
hour or 2, most of the time you won't get it.
that part. Yeah, so it's so much of your freedom is taken when you can't drive, and I know that I am privileged in the sense that I might be able to soon with the help of some corrective devices,
Fantastic.
but not all people are in that boat that are
No.
able to drive. And I won't be able to drive at night, during weather, things like that. But
Right.
when I
And with
ran
current
out of milk
technology,
the
I'll
other
never be
day,
able to drive. They
yeah,
can give me all the corrective lenses in the world,
well,
but unless some miracle cure comes
yes.
out for RP, some
Yeah.
kind of gene therapy or a new like robotic eye or something like that, I'll never be able to drive.
And that's like the reality of it that I hope that folks understand from our conversation today is that there's a lot being done, and yes, we have access to these devices and these things to help us and our teachers and our learners like you, or our teachers like you. I'm the learner. But there's also such a long way to go. We have so much more room.
And that's the thing. So there is such a long way to go, like you said, and it's not going to happen if there's only one or two voices crying out in the wilderness. Okay. Blind
Yep.
people got to fight for the things that they need. Don't stay silent. If there's something that you want to see changed, be an instrument of that change. Don't just say, I'm going to wait for somebody to do it for me. Do it for yourself and do it for your other fellow blind people. Because if you don't say something You might be the one voice that says something that will spark a fire and that will have other people saying something. You could be the one who leads. So don't just sit back and wait, because being blind is not the end of the world unless you make it the end of the world.
Ooh, I needed to hear that today. You're amazing. Thank you for joining us today on the Echo Lens,
Thank you very much
where
for having me.
yeah, it was so awesome to have you here. So, on the Echo Lens, where we view assistive technology through the eyes of lived experience. If today's conversation sparks something in you, you can share it, rate it, and keep the dialogue going. To learn more about the beautiful project or to support our work, visit echovisionfoundation.org. Until next time, stay curious, stay connected, and keep seeing with love. Thanks, everyone.